Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship. Warning.
Oh, hi, everybody. I'm Sheila Gunn Reid, and you're watching the Rebel News daily live stream. And instead of David Menzies, who's on another week off, I'm joined by my Prairie colleague, Kelly Lamb. Kelly, how's it going? I've never co-hosted the live stream with you. You've been on my Paywalled Gun show a couple of times before, but I'm kind of excited about another full day of Western sensibilities on the live stream.
Western sensibilities. It's a good way to start the stream. I'm happy to be here. I'm doing okay. I'm cold. It's very cold, as you know. So I'm happy other than that. But it's a new year. It doesn't seem to be a new trend, as we'll get into shortly. But I'm in good spirits. I'm in good spirits today. Happy to be here.
Yeah, it is another year, third year of 2 weeks to flatten the curve. And I was just doing some research on one of the stories that we plan to talk about today, and that's what's happening in China. And I was digging up some articles from way back in February of 2020. So even before the pandemic was sort of called, we're calling a pandemic. And the articles coming out of China, like the reports of what was happening in China, and we were all outraged and we couldn't even believe the civil liberties violations that were happening in China. It's normalized now in the Western world in under 2 years. Like February 2020 is not 2 years ago. It's under 2 years. And yet, if you read through it, you're like, yeah, that's what they're doing that in Toronto. Yeah, they're doing that in Quebec. Like, it's really weird how quickly we adopted Chinese sensibilities, to use that word again.
Yeah, we have, and it's incredible to watch. It's kind of horrifying. It's great that we can get together and chat and make jokes and laugh about some of this stuff, but at the core of it, it's really quite serious and quite dangerous. How people have just accepted a level of strange blanket authoritarianism like never before in this country. And I don't know what the remedy is for this, other than to continue to speak truth and to try to change some hearts and minds. But what do you do? Because the mass sort of, there's all these sort of terms floating around since the Rogan video about kind of what's happening en masse with people's psyches at the moment. And it's very evident. And people are accepting out of sheer fear and brainwashing the absolute tyranny that's going on from the top levels down. They're accepting horrible treatment from friends, family, and neighbors, and people, and just regular citizens, as well as our leaders calling us racist and misogynist and saying we're not tolerable. And there's all these sorts of things going on that are very disturbing. But everyone's like, no, it's fine. It's what's necessary. We got to do what we got to do. This is my role as a Canadian. This is my role as even a Christian. Many people are saying, there's people that have just bought this hook, line, and sinker. And we are turning into something that I don't recognize. And what's scaring me is that when I speak to people that have left the old USSR and have left really horrific situations to come here, they're the ones sounding the warning. And that's what's really frightening. And we're not listening. And that's very worrisome to me.
Not only are we not listening, but there are things that we can't talk about, which I should get that out of the way. I should get the rules out of the way, because I feel like even in this conversation is getting dangerously close to the things we can't talk about on YouTube. And I know you're not on YouTube live all that much, so you might get reminders from me as we go along, like, Kelly, we're getting towards the red line and we have to stop.
Beep, beep, beep.
Because yeah, those YouTube rules, they truly do keep me up at night. The most, like I said in the morning meeting, they are the most boring thing that will cause you to lose sleep in a day if you work at Rebel News, because it's like, is tomorrow the big day that we get completely kicked off of YouTube? And every day that we're on YouTube is borrowed time. So I should tell everybody what we're doing. This is the Rebel News daily live stream. Used to just be hosted on Friday just by Ezra Levant, and it was a great way for us to interact with our viewers and talk about the news of the day. And then the pandemic struck, and all the mainstream media outlets decided it's too dangerous to do local news. Too much like work to do local news. And so they sort of stopped the local news coverage, and all news is local, and restrictions are changing across the country, literally day by day. And sometimes the best way to talk about the idiocy of the overreaction is to do it live, just as things are happening. And at the time, it was a great way for us to make a little money on YouTube through something called a super chat. But then Joe Biden got elected, and big tech didn't have to pretend anymore. They hate conservatives as much as we dislike them. And they completely demonetized us, cutting us off from super chats and the support of our viewers, which is a form, of course, of soft censorship. But I don't know if you're like me, Kelly, but when people don't want me somewhere, particularly for ideological reasons, that's how you get more of me. That's how I just like show up more frequently and just be a little bit more Sheila and a little bit more over the top. And so YouTube said, oh, we don't really like you, Rebel. So that's one of the reasons why we still broadcast on YouTube. There are almost 1.6 million YouTube subscribers. We love every one of you, even you hate watchers. And we don't want to abandon you. But we start our live stream on YouTube at the same time we broadcast on Rumble, Odyssey, and Super U. Those are 3 free speechy platforms. They say they're politically neutral. I don't care about their politics as long as they don't care about mine, and that seems to be the way with these other 3 platforms. And they will allow us to say things that YouTube won't. So the reason I sort of told Kelly we might have a little problem and I might have to remind you of some things is because there are things that we can't say on YouTube. And one of those is questioning the advice of a public health officer, because they are the infallible deities of the new religion of public health. And so if you talk ill of them, you will be excommunicated from the Church of Big Tech. And so we will come a time during the show today where we sign off from YouTube and invite the people who are still watching us on YouTube. Why are you doing that, by the way? To join us over on one of those other platforms where we will continue the conversation uncensored. So oh, by the way, all those other platforms do something that YouTube doesn't do, and that is allow you to support the work that we do through something called a Rumble Rant, an Odyssey Hyper Chat, or a Super U Shout. And if you send one of those, Mr. Producer AD will send it to me in a Slack message, and we'll do our best to read your question, query, or comment on air. That is all the nuts and bolts of what we're doing here. Kelly, I don't know if you do New Year's resolutions. Do you do those?
Loosely, I prefer to try to better myself throughout the year because I find that's a better plan in general, because I also find it's hard to stick to them. But I do have a few things, like I'm reading through the Bible this year. I'm doing a few things that I'm trying to make, a fresh start like anyone else. So New Year's wasn't as big of a deal for me this year. So it all blends in.
Me neither.
Right?
Yeah, like me neither. I think when things sort of pop up, if there's things that I feel like I need to change or that I'm not happy with, I feel like it's better to just deal with it then than to let it fester until some arbitrary date on the calendar. But
exactly.
I think we should all resolve to be a better friend than Patton Oswalt, because apparently he's a comedian. He was never really on my radar, except for the fact that I knew that his wife wrote a really good serial killer book about the Golden State Killer. Yeah, she did.
Okay. I didn't know that. I know he was on King of Queens. That's all I know about him. He was the guy on King of Queens. Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I had never really, he's sort of not, he's kind of inconsequential. He's one of those background inobtrusive characters.
He's typecast a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I actually noticed him on King of Queens last night. I don't know why, but I was like, oh, that's that guy that's an awful friend to Dave Chappelle. So apparently, Patton Oswalt, he posted on his, that's him on King of Queens. Yeah, just a background character, nosy neighbor, less interesting than the guy who lived over the fence from Tim the Toolman Taylor, I guess.
Far less interesting.
He posted, yes, and whose face we never see. He posted on his Instagram account a picture with Dave Chappelle. And apparently the two have been friends for 3 decades and 34 years, so 3.5 decades. And apparently they really like each other, or Patton Oswalt really likes him. But the problem is that Patton Oswalt really wants to be liked by Hollywood. And Dave Chappelle just says what he believes. And so after he posted that, he got a bunch of blowback. And this is him looking sullen and contemplative as he decides to throw his friend under the bus. And like this Facebook post, what an awful, awful, awful friend. Be a better friend than him. He says, I saw a friend I hadn't seen in a long time on New Year's Eve. We've known each other since we were teens. Okay. I have maybe one friend that I still talk to from my teens, and I would never throw him out. Anyways, he's a fellow comedian, the funniest I've ever met. I love how they're talking about Dave Chappelle like he is somebody whose name you can't even speak. Like
So
that
he's
guy
like an obituary.
Yeah. I know, right? I wanted to post a pic and IG story about it, so I did. Okay, here. The friend is Dave Chappelle. 34 years we've been friends. He's refocused and refined ideas a lot, blah, 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 about race and history and life. But then he gets into the problem with Dave Chappelle, who has said that it's not that Dave Chappelle doesn't support trans rights. He just thinks that when there are times when trans rights conflict with women's rights, and, you know, he's an advocate for women's rights. And Dave Chappelle has even said that he's a feminist. So the rest of this story goes on to basically, it's a witch burning on Instagram by a friend, which I think is the worst part. And he goes on to say, I'm an ally. I'm sorry I hurt you. On and on and on. I didn't realize the hurt that it caused. If your community is so fragile that two friends that you don't know Dave Chappelle, you don't know Patton Oswalt, but they know each other and they take a picture and they post it on Instagram, and that somehow greatly damages you, you're doing pretty well. Like this is clearly a first world problem. I just can't believe that there are people out there who were so outraged that Patton Oswalt is friends with Dave Chappelle for 34 years and they took a picture together. And that ruined their life, apparently. Based on this, that ruined their lives.
Highly, highly damaging to all levels of their emotional well-being. Obviously very damaging. I'm literally shaking right now. Really, I don't understand I can't find the time in my day to worry about these things. And I don't know how people find the time in their day or the energy in their stamina, battery. I don't know why they want to. I don't understand. And to me, if that's something that just makes you out of your minds, then you might need to seek some professional assistance with that matter, because I don't think that's normal. And I don't think that that's helpful in a society that is normalizing it. This cancel culture stuff that we talk about, it's not just about actually canceling or banning or removing someone's account. It's about the mob that goes after someone for just being themselves, basically, just saying some things. And comedians especially are getting nailed for this when all they're trying to do is what they've done since the beginning of time, which is make fun of everything and everyone. And for some reason, there's just certain things you can't touch now. And it's really getting dull in the comedic world. And for what? For not actually helping anyone. There's no actual damage. This isn't violence, people. This isn't violence. I don't know how to get that across any more clearly. It's insane. But I read his thing this morning, and the look on my face, my husband's like, what are you reading? And I said, oh, just something for work I get to talk about. And I can't even that's a man writing that? Come on. Yeah. No, thank you. What? Yeah. Just okay. Drivel. It's so Justin Trudeau-y. It's so awful. It's hilarious, except for it's real, and then it's just so sad. So sad.
Like, I'm sorry, I just want to read through some of this. For all the things he's helped me evolve on, I'll always disagree with where he stands now on transgender issues. I think Dave Chappelle's viewpoint, I don't want to speak to him, is leave everybody alone. That's his viewpoint. But I also don't believe a seeker like him is done evolving. Oh, so he'll get there. He'll get to be as good as you and as enlightened as you one day.
So condescending. It's so if a friend did this, I would be so done. That's awful.
This isn't a friend.
No, this is something else. This is some kind of weird new age yoga teacher that's giving you crap because you didn't do the mantra right. No.
Yeah. I don't know. I can't imagine opening up my Twitter account or my Instagram account where all the like you open it up and it's just like everybody's yelling at you all the time, and I don't let it get to me. I don't care. I literally don't care. But if there were a bunch of people on there screaming and yelling at me because I was friends with somebody they didn't like, why would I care? Like, I don't know these people. I know the other person.
Yeah.
Why would I listen to these people I don't know to throw out the person that I do know? These people are, you know what it is? It is, people are just so shallow. Their friendships are shallow. And more than anything, they just want to be liked. And I'd rather be morally right than liked any day of the week.
And have a few good people absolutely in your life that you respect you and will tell you when you're doing something wrong. Not this, I hope you grow, friend, to be as wise and enlightened as I am. You know, it's just, it's nonsensical. That's not friendship. And I prefer, like you said, not this vapid surface level crap. Same with, I think you mentioned around the Christmas time, you know, you were talking about people cutting families and friends out for Christmas or for different holidays, and how vile that is. And you were saying there's no conditional love. I feel for these people or there's no unconditional love. This is very conditional. And this is a perfect example, just non-COVID related. It's so vapid and it's all for show. And these people's social media accounts and following and bank accounts ultimately depend on them being sniveling and apologetic. All I can say is he always struck me as kind of funny, but he's a dweeb, right? And now I see this and I'm like, well, you're just that guy, but far worse than I thought. I thought he was like a lovable dweeb. No, he's just sort of weaselly like Ryan Maley.
Oh, Andrew Chapidos paid money to talk to us when he could just literally text me. I'm paid to answer your messages, Andrew, by the way. That's what Ezra pays me for. Anyway, he says, wow, I can't believe how mean you girls are to Patton Oswalt. He's just an ordinary garden gnome trying to make sense of the world. He does have a gnomish quality, doesn't he? Not an elf, more of like a gnome leaning towards a goblin. He's over there, not charming like an elf or benign like an elf. I could talk about how bad he is all day long, but I feel like I'm just punching down on somebody that almost nobody knows about. So let's keep going because speaking of punching down, I want to report every single day the Democrats for elder abuse. Like, I want to call Adult Protective Services on these people for just how they trot out poor old dementia-riddled Joe Biden every single day in front of the cameras to make a total ass of himself, and he's done it again. And I think we have a clip, if you wouldn't mind rolling that.
We thank you for your diligence in helping preserve the legacy of the American farmer.
Well, thank you. Thank you. You know, everybody, I come from the state of Delaware. Everybody thinks the big industry is chemicals. It's chickens. Chickens. Broiler chickens, billion-dollar industries, and needs help. So anyway, sorry, I don't want to get too personal here.
Okay. We're going to move to the next set, but we're going to pause for a moment and for the press to exit.
Okay.
In your view, do you think it should have included a testing component?
I'll be talking to you about that later.
And when will Americans get those free COVID tests?
Are you going to break up the big four meat packers and the president?
All right, guys.
Thanks, guys.
You're confident in your COVID team?
Okay.
Thank you.
Poor guy should be watching Matlock reruns. I'm eagerly awaiting. Like, that's the one part of the story of the new, like this news story that I would watch is more personal stories from Joe Biden about chickens. That actually, I think, would probably be kind of interesting.
I had a sip of coffee and enjoyed that greatly. It's just too bad that he's the leader of the United States of America, but he's enjoyable as like a Matlock type, I guess. I don't know. He's not, I shouldn't say that. Matlock's great. Matlock was very very sensible.
Sharp.
Joe, yeah, sharply. Joe, I meant more looks-wise, but Joe Biden is not that. He's not that at all. That's putting it extremely diplomatically. He's had some pretty ridiculous moments. it is sad though. I laugh, but then I kind of, that's terrible, right? Maybe the Grandpa Simpson is a better option to put out there for a comparison. I don't know. I don't think he should be leading the USA. That said, I don't want Kamal in there either. So I don't think that they have a good outlook in this particular office at the moment. But yeah, it's pretty sad to see what he said. And that was, I mean, yeah, I guess. Talk about chickens more. Sure. It seems like he's at least comfortable when he has to know where he is and stuff. That's where he struggles.
Yeah, he seems really passionate about chickens. Too bad he's not passionate about the economy or civil liberties or inflation or anything like that. That's meh. But chickens, fine. Look, I like chickens as much as the next person, but he's sort of the leader of the free world. And yeah, you can tell, like, as they like quickly, you can tell his handlers are like, okay, that's enough. Joe's going to have a senior moment. And so we got to get the press out of here. Like he's saying, okay, well, like whoever the handler is was like, we got to get the press out of here. And Joe just sits like this, like he's having like when you doze off in church. I like to, if I do doze off in church. Yeah, if I do doze off in church, I always have my rosary in my hand. So people think I'm deep in prayer, but I'm having a little 40 winks. It's a trick that you feel free to use that, friends. If you need to have a nap in church, just hold your rosary. People will leave you alone. They'll think you're just deep in prayer. Let's talk about this next thing because it's kind of shocking. And I'm full of I told you so's. Full, just right up here. Just my I told you so tank is full. But a CBC producer has had a come to Jesus moment about her own network. If you wouldn't mind bringing that up, great. Tara Henley, speaking freely why I resigned from the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. She says, for months now, I've been getting complaints about the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. Just months? That seems low. Anyways, she worked as a TV and radio producer and on occasion on-air columnist for much of the past decade. People want to know why, for example, this is just so much social justice. People want to know why, for example, non-binary Filipinos concerned about a lack of LGBT terms in Tagalog is an editorial priority for the CBC when local issues of broad concern go unreported. Yeah.
Valid question.
Or why?
Valid question.
Yeah, you know what? Fair enough. Or why our pop culture radio show's coverage of the Dave Chappelle Netflix special failed to include any of the legions of fans or comics that did not find it offensive, or why exactly taxpayers, thank you, this is the one, or why exactly taxpayers should be funding articles that scold Canadians for using words such as brainstorm and lame. Everyone asked the same thing. What is going on at the CBC? You know what? Good for her. Little late to the party, but you know, we were talking about this off air. When these people finally get mugged by reality, I have to put my I told you so's in a sack, throw them away, and say, fine, get over here. Welcome to the club. We all
Group
hated
hug,
CBC
I guess.
for a long time. Yeah, get over here.
Yeah.
Join the club. It took you a long time. You're a little slow on the uptake, but here you are. I wonder, though, how many people at CBC feel this way. Okay, let's read this. It used to be that I was one of the furthest to the left in any newsroom, occasionally causing strain in story meetings with my views on issues like the housing crisis. I'm now easily the most conservative, frequently sparking tension by questioning identity politics. This happened in the span of 18 months. My own politics did not change. Mm-hmm. That seems
I know
about
that
right.
feeling. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's a lot of people who are like, I thought I was a liberal, but they keep telling me to shut up. So maybe I am a conservative because you're the only people who will let me talk. And apparently she feels that way.
I really enjoyed, I saw, you know, elements of myself, not as wasn't doing any reporting at that time, but just as a, you know, individually, personally, for my own sort of, you know, revolution moment or revelation, moment, you know, figuring out that so much of what I believed was a lie. And really, we've said this before, I think even just you and I on your show, Sheila, that often conservatives and people who are left-wing don't have necessarily completely different values or beliefs or wanting to change certain things in society. We just see very different ways of going about it. And often it's just comes down to very simple things like how much we trust the government to take care of those jobs versus maybe personal charities, free market, etc. And really that's half the battle. And I think in other ways, not always, I'm not talking about like the far left, whatever, that's different, but there's a lot of stuff we can actually agree on if we get rid of all the stupid buzzwords and get away from the media and just talk as humans. So it was nice to read that because it was just a regular person thinking, what happened here? Have I changed? And you can see the going back and forth, like, is it me? Is it them? Is it me? And I went through that too. It's a gaslighting thing. You go through it where you're questioning your own sanity because these people are telling you that you're bad, right? And when you do finally come to it, interestingly enough, it was CBC that really red-pilled me as well. There was a couple of things. It was a slow, I call it a slow time release pill that I took for the red pill. But there was, moments of aha epiphanies. And one of them was Trump, and another was the CBC's coverage on a local story that had a lot of racially charged tension. And I saw them literally lying after the court case documents came out, and I studied them, and I was mortified that they would stoke the fires of racial tension, and you could feel it. It was palpable in the communities around here, and they were doing that on purpose, and I was so sickened. And once you realize they're lying to you, then you question what else have they lied, and then the door's open and you can't go back. So good for her. I welcome her as well. No hard feelings, because I only came to the light in 2017, 18 over that sort of process. So it happens.
Yeah. Some of us are early adopters of good ideas and some of us take a little longer, but, sometimes it is true. There's a healthy dose of gaslighting when you are in the situation surrounded by true believers. And you have that like Principal Skinner moment when it's like, am I out of touch? No. It's the kids who are wrong. There's a little bit of that happens to people, and good for her, because it is really easy when you're in sort of the pressure cooker and everybody around you believes these things. And yeah, you do feel a little bit crazy because you don't believe them. And there's a lot of pressure to conform. So good for her. Good for her, you know.
It's not easy. It's the hard road, and she sacrificed a good job, and I'm assuming it's benefits and all that, and she's taking a chance and going more independent, and I give a kudos. So,
yep. Yes, thank you, Mr. Producer. She will be found on Substack now, so people can subscribe to her newsletter. I don't know her, but I am a fan of free thinkers, and so you can find her Substack and subscribe to it, and you can support her that way. As she makes her journey from the far left to, I don't know, she's probably still far left as far as her politics
classical
go,
liberalism.
She believes in free speech and free thought, and that's all I care about, really. Being left alone. The world is in two factions now, and it's not political. It's the people who want to be left alone and the people who won't leave them alone. That's the political divide these days. Now, I think before we get into our next things, we should say not goodbye, but see you in a minute to our friends who are currently watching us on YouTube, and give them the opportunity to move over to Rumble, Super U, or Odyssey. And then Kelly can just speak what's on her heart, because I feel like she's got a lot of opinions about COVID and that kind of stuff that will get us nuked off YouTube. And frankly, I always thought it would be David Menzies. I don't want it to be Kelly. So let's just take a minute, and Mr. Producer will let us know when we're clear. Okay, perfect. We're all clear.